Hi SwitchUp family and welcome back to the channel. Massive thanks to all who have subscribed as we almost hit 120,000, which is absolutely redonkulous. We're going to have a bit of a special one this week where we'll look at action games. So it might be first person shooters or it might be third person action titles that are on sale. Hopefully at their lowest prices, but if not, just a really decent chunky discount. If you check the top comment, you'll see the winner of our competition from last week. And this week, you don't have to do anything particularly special. I'd just like your thoughts and feedback on the avoid titles which come at the end of every sales video. Ah, the Nintendo seal of approval, how I miss you. And a quick thanks to AFK Arena who sponsored this episode. What's on sale? Let's find out. First up then, we've got the lovely City of Brass, which I reviewed quite a while back. Now, if you want an idea of how this plays, it's a little bit like if Prince of Persia was a first-person roguelite. Your character has a whip in one hand and a number of abilities that they can use, and there are different characters that you can choose from as well. But these only unlock after some successful runs. There are many of the developers from Eshop behind this one, which is very cool indeed and not something I was aware of prior to the game's release. As you go through each run, obviously you'll find a load of different power-ups. There are certain ones that work much better than others, and there are different builds that you can use to progress much further. Some of the boss fights are brutal, as you would hopefully expect in a title of this nature, but I like this one. I like the visuals. It did take a few minutes, maybe about an hour or so, to get my head around the gameplay, as when you go into most first-person shooters, you kind of aren't really trained to work with roguelite in mind, in that you don't expect to be going from level to level, dying and then redoing, and that kind of repetitive nature that can come about was assuaged to quite a good degree here by the different weapons and abilities really that you pick up as you go along. A very addictive one, and one that I highly recommend. Currently at £3.37, that's 75% off, an absolute bargain. This one clocks in at 1.85 gigs, and with a sale that ends on August the 23rd. Big thanks to AFK Arena for sponsoring this video. If you're not sure what exactly it is, it's a hero collection gacha game that has a heavy emphasis on pre-planning your battles rather than having to spend so long just staring at your phone screen. As the title suggests, much of it takes place AFK. They're currently celebrating a big crossover with the Assassin's Creed universe with the long-awaited release of the Ezio Auditore character. Now hopefully you know who he is. He's from the Assassin's Creed games. For some strange reason we haven't had on the Nintendo Switch yet, but he is awesome. As you can see, Ezio has a number of skills linked to his Ubisoft character, such as Eagle Vision, which is the first one you unlock, which is sweet, all the way through to the Assassinate ability. Spend some time leveling him up, and if you're a bit of a collector, I think Glen would like this one. It's one of those games where just collecting all the different characters becomes really fun. Plus it does look pretty sweet, doesn't it? It looks a bit like a fresco painting or something. As always, all the links will be down in the description, so you can get collecting and take part in that Assassin's Creed crossover yourself. Right, let's get on with the video. Next up, we've got the first of the two Metro games that are on sale. We've got Metro2033 the Redux edition, which is 40% off, bringing it down to £13.49. Now, I did a review of these. I'll pop a link down in the description. Absolutely great games. Brilliant. Amazing to play them again on the Switch. My personal preference is probably the second one, Last Light. But if you're interested, really, you're going to want to play through from this one to the next one, as there's a continuation of Artyom's story and just the people in general. It's got a very nice story whereby the Earth has been scorched and singed and everyone has to live in the abandoned metro system. But much like the game Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, it has that kind of atmosphere to it. You have like the rustic music playing in the background on the guitar, or you'll have a beggar just in the corner. But this first title was quite action heavy. There are moments where you'll be fighting in small corridors, just trying to defend and stay alive. There's not really multiple routes in this one. It's quite linear and it's level based where you move from stage to stage. This one clocks in a slightly larger 6.2 gigs, but it's still not too bad. It's single player only, and it will take you around about 9 or 10 hours. I generally I should say, tend to take a little bit longer with my games as I just try and find all the little secrets. One nice little inclusion with this version was the two different playstyles, the Spartan and survival approach, obviously to suit the way that you like to play the game. One has more ammunition, etc, and you can play it more like an action title, and the other one is the polar opposite. And then for those people that blast through those, you've got the Ranger mode, which is just brutally difficult, a bit like the survival mode they put into Fallout 4, which I absolutely loved. There's like no HUD, no UI. It's you're gonna die a lot, let's put it that way, and there you go. This one goes on sale until August the 20th, so again, you've got a little bit of time, only a few days, but enough really. Then we have the sequel, which is Metro Last Light. Again, the Redux edition that has a few new lighting features. And worth noting is that these Nintendo Switch ports were absolutely brilliant. So you had the gyroscopic aiming, and the visual quality was really high, and it was really impressive actually overall. In terms of storyline this time around, you're looking at around about 10 hours, maybe to 13, but personally it took me at least 15 because, again, I like to find everything. This one was much more my cup of tea in that you had the modification of your weapons, so you could find silencers, I say find silencers, you could buy silencers to equip to weapons, increase the stock so that their accuracy was better, and just generally there was a little bit more tinkering, which I enjoy, and just sneaking around in the darkness, doing takedowns and things like that. This had more of a stealth focus for those of you out there that are a bit more stealth oriented. That's kind of reflected as well in the level design. There are some enclosed areas, but they tend to give you a little bit more variety, and there's a touch more verticality as well. Some of them have many layers of stairs, etc. And yeah, I preferred this one over the first title. At 7.6 gigs, it's a little bit chunkier, and as the other, the sale goes on until the 20th. This next one ends in literally hours, so I'm putting it here more of a guide for when it comes up on sale next, because it's on sale quite often. But if you're one of the lucky ones that can pick it up at 70% off at £4.49, then I would suggest doing so. I'd say for its money, this is a bit of a hidden gem on the eShop in general. I know there's a few of you now that have heard me mention it and have picked it up and really enjoyed it, so it's going to get another mention from me. It's only quite a short title, around about 5 hours it took me to complete it, but it's got a really, really nice, charming character. It's almost like if you squashed a JRPG or an RPG, a first-person shooter, and then like a bit of a roguelite all into one tiny little ball, tiny little colourful ball, then you'd get this. I love the character animations. I like the way the other characters in the game look. I think it's got like I say, a really individual style. There are little quests and things that you go out to do, and instances of sorts that you can enter, and a number of abilities that you unlock as you progress. But overall, it's quite light-hearted, quite upbeat and cheery, and one of the best aspects for me is that beautiful soundtrack, composed, I believe, by, and I hope I don't get this completely wrong, Kazuhiko No Russia. This one clocks in at 6.2 gigs, and as I say, that sale ends very, very shortly, in only a few hours, so if you're lucky enough to get it, then GG. Heading away from the first person then, because there aren't a huge amount of those, let's be honest, on the Switch. Here's an excellent action-adventure, I think you call it an action-adventure survival game, and it's Death Road to Canada. It's pretty much perfect for Switch because it's almost designed around small play sessions and doing similar things over and over. There's a different story each time you play the game, and it's set in a world that doesn't take itself too seriously, and that is literally direct blurb from them, but it couldn't be more spot on. When you park up to look for loot and things, there can be up to 500 different zombies on the screen trying to get you. And then you have a number of choices. You can like run around them, just scavenge what you want and try and get back alive, or you can try and fight. There are a number of different rare events that only happen every now and then, and it just keeps things exciting. And it's one of those games where you can play 100 times, and then on the 101 time, something completely different happens, and you're like, oh man, that's awesome. Exactly like something like The Binding of Isaac. Glen and I played the other day, and it was like, I have never seen that before, and we've put about 600 hours into that game. This one has 4-player local co-op, and there are 4 different characters that you can control. Plus, you can teach your pet dog how to drive a car, which is awesome. It's only 203 megabytes, this one, so it's a tiny little one, and in theory, you could finish it in about 6 hours, but in reality, you're likely to spend far, far longer than that. This sale goes on until August the 25th. So, believe it or not, the Nintendo Switch is the first time I've played through Devil May Cry 1, 2 and 3, and I quite enjoyed 1. I was having a good time, and then I got to 2 and was like, I don't know if it's just me or what, I haven't really looked around, but it was not a great experience for me, but I quite enjoyed Devil May Cry 3. It's currently 25% off their new reduced prices. I don't know if you remember, when they launched, I believe all of the Capcom games were like 30 quid, which was ridiculous, but they kept dropping that down to 19. At the moment, they've defaulted their price to 19, and then they're dropping their prices down, so you can pick this one at the moment for 11 quid. It does have 1 or 2 player co-op, which is nice, as well as all the special content that the other versions had, and there was a touch more strategy to the combat than in the previous games. Now, it's a chunky old game, about 5.08 gigs, but this is the first time that we've seen a drop on it. This one is set before the events of the original game, and it sees Dante facing off against his twin brother, Virgil. Doesn't sound very threatening, does he? Alright, Virgil, pipe down, son. That sale goes on until September the 3rd, so you've got loads of time to pick it up. If you're after some old school action-adventure gameplay, then perhaps something like Agarlas or Agarlas. I don't know how the pronunciation is, you'll have to help me out here. But we reviewed this one on the channel and I enjoyed it immensely. It was very much an old school, like Wonder Boy title. So don't expect to go in and find anything particularly new or innovative. And for those of you who are all pixel arted out to the max, then just run away now because you're not going to enjoy this. For the rest of us and those that enjoy this style, then there's a lot to offer here. There's quite a big world to explore with different environments like forests, seas, caves, etc. It's non-linear, so it's not like A to B, etc. You can choose where you go. There are a load of different magical abilities that you use, some nice little boss fights, and I must admit I did enjoy the little cheeky chiptune soundtrack. This one's only 234 megs, comes from P-Cube, and the sale goes on until August the 21st. I believe there's a sequel to this. I thought it was a sequel. I saw something coming up called Agarlas. Yeah, Agarlas. I think there's a sequel, but don't quote me on that one. This is 55% off, taking it down to, I believe, $6 or your regional equivalent. Killer Queen Black still on sale, and one certainly worth considering. This has offline 1 to 4 player or local 1 to 8 or online 1 to 8 player. If you're not sure what the game's all about, well, it's like a strategic team platformer that does have a bit of a party emphasis, but also like really brutal 4-player team combat. It's taken clear emphasis from other similar games, but it's done it really well. There isn't just one way to win as well, and I'd strongly recommend, if you do think about picking this up, that you look into some tutorials, etc., as there's a lot of depth and nuance to the gameplay. It's a shame that I think this one got quite overlooked when it launched, because it's a very enjoyable experience, and it's got a nice chunky discount at the moment, 30% off, and with a relatively small download size of only 928 megs, loads of different characters, different weapons like swords, morning stars, etc., and 6 different battlefields to play through. And thankfully there are still people online with this one. There's unranked, ranked and custom matches that you can play. If you're after something just a bit different, perhaps go check out some reviews of it, but I highly recommend Killer Queen Black, with a sale that goes on until August the 21st. If you've been hankering for some old school, like Jet Set Radio almost, style games, then Hover might be the title for you. It wasn't the best. I mean, when it came out, I'd probably give it around about a 7 out of 10, but it's still a decent enough 3D open world adventure. Its real selling point is that parkour style gameplay where you can skate around the world, and as part of a team of young rebels, the Gamers, very unique name there, you're fighting against the new anti-leisure laws that are oppressing the city. That sounds pretty familiar. You have a ton of high-tech gear and equipment. You can do like massive jumps, grind across things, and like I say, if you're looking for something that's totally different to everything else we've seen today, at 60% off, I think this is a recommendation I can now make. Now, like a couple of the others we've seen today, this one only goes on for the next 17 hours, so you're going to have to be quite quick. It clocks in at 5.5 gigs, and it does have online aspects where there are up to 1 to 16 different players, but in all honesty I never got to experience those. I played it all offline. I realised the other day that I've actually been playing the Dynasty Warriors games for, I think, about 20 years. I remember the first one and being just amazed by how many characters were on the screen. Forget the fact that they all looked identical. I just couldn't believe it. And then the fact I could do split screen with a friend and blast through. I do genuinely enjoy these titles, and in my opinion Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends Definitive Edition, man that's a tongue twister, is probably one of the best we've got on Switch. It clocks in at quite a chunky 15.8 gigs. It does still have the 1 or 2 player offline play, and what I didn't realise, and you'll have to kind of educate me a touch on this, is that much of the characters, or many of the characters, are taken from and based upon actual individuals that lived. Now you'll have to tell me what the full story behind that is, but that's interesting in and of itself. Lu Bu, what a legend. It's a humongous game in terms of content, and trying to complete it and get everything's going to take you at least 140 hours. And it's what I like to class as a real popcorn title, like an action film. You don't have to think, just run in and just destroy everything. There is a touch of strategy to the series, like it will show you on a map areas that are under heavy attack and you can charge in and just annihilate everything. But realistically, you won't be, scratching your head and puzzling with this one. Yeah, I like this one. I'm gonna have to re-download it now and dive back in. It's 30% off, taking it around to about $25 to $30, so not too bad, or your regional equivalent. And that sale goes on until the 19th of August, so you've got a couple of days to pick it up still. Which takes us on to my favourite time of the week. 2 games you should avoid like a soggy biscuit. Ugh. The first of those is a game that played alright on PC. I think I picked it up on Steam, and it was semi-decent, at least you could aim. It's a light gun game called Mad Bullets. And I know Glen looked at this and we were like, yes, a 1 to 4 player light gun game on Switch, that could be a good laugh. But unfortunately, it was literally broken when it launched. Now, I don't know how much work, and you'd hope with it being on its lowest sale price ever, that they've done enough work on the controls, but it was awful. It was almost unplayable on Switch, and a Metacritic rating of 0.5 currently is kind of a reflection of that. Now, let me know down in the comments, did they get around to fixing it, or did they think, oh, I know what we'll do, we'll just crank the price down really low, and then everyone will buy our terrible game. Ay caramba. Then for the enormous price of 1 cent, we have Corridor Z. Yes, that's right, 1 cent. It says it's 100% discount, but that makes no sense. Corridor Z is a game where you run through a corridor. You'll be trying to help the pom-pom girl, the jock, and the jarhead to survive while shooting down tons of, and I quote, running horror. I mean, I could just be drawing attention to this and you might all go out and spend 1 cent on Corridor Z. But remember that you only live once. And in the case of the jock, the pom-pom girl, and the jarhead, on my Switch, you're not ever going to live. Corridor Z might as well be free, because this one, my friends, is not for me. Goodbye. And that takes us on to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, then do consider sticking around and subscribing. We've seen quite a few this month. It's been amazing, and we really do appreciate it. A big thanks to the sponsor of this video, Nice One, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Thanks to our patrons, you guys are awesome. See ya!